So 11 days ago, I decided that I was going to try to do the one-arm pull-up before I turned the age of 54. And to rewind, at the end of 2024, in December, I managed to do a slow and strict muscle-up before my 54th birthday, which was a goal that I had set back in September, and I used that as a distraction training from my cycling training, because I was going to the World Championships and needed to deload on the cycling. But that said, at the end of December of last year, which was just a couple weeks ago, I hadn't trained for the strict and slow muscle up, but I just had been doing other workouts that would lead me to be able to at least get close to it. And I nailed it. That was December 27th, right after Christmas. And after that, I had an inkling in my mind that if I can stay relatively lean over the holidays and not indulge myself, what would happen if I took that kind of training that I used to be able to do the slow and strict muscle up? And also, just to rewind even further, the first time I ever was able to do the slow and strict muscle up was the very day I turned 50, so February 11th, 2021. So I wasn't never a gymnast, and all the stuff I learned over the last few years. But the one-arm pull-up I had done about 2 years ago, and figured that was a swan song. That was the challenge of being able to accomplish that 2 years ago was going to be my magnum opus. And because I figured Father Time was going to not be kind and I wouldn't be able to do it. Because ultimately what these two things are a body mass index, a strength to weight ratio ability. And you get older, you get heavier. I'm a cyclist, I'm a sprint cyclist, and heavy in the legs, not like most calisthenics pros. No offense to you guys, but I do it all. That said, I started on January 1, as a matter of fact, my single arm pull-up training. And what I'm going to explain to you is how I did it with actual clips of me using the process I had worked out in my head in the hopes of building enough tendon strength and muscle memory to be able to do a one-arm pull-up in hopefully 14 days. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I managed to do it in 11. So follow along. So I couldn't figure out a clever way of doing a voiceover while I play the video, so I'm going to speak into a camera, and that way I can kind of walk you through how I performed. How I was able to perform a one-arm pull-up with only 11 days of training. And let me go back. I'm almost 54. It is currently several days later, the 17th of January 2025, and I will be 54 in a few weeks, February 11th, if you're keeping track. That said, I want to preface this whole video, obviously, is that I've trained a long time before this, but not specifically for the one-arm pull-up. I'm shocked to people that watch the short version of this video of like people saying, well, that's BS, you can't possibly do a one-arm pull-up in 11 days. And I think finally people have enough sense to realize, like, yeah, that dude trains a lot, but he just spent 11 days specifically training for the one-arm pull-up. And that's precisely what I did. So, that said, I, like I mentioned before, having knocked out the slow and strict muscle up again before I turned 54, the first time I had done that was when I turned 50. And the first time when I had ever done the one-arm pull-up, I was probably 22, 23. And I was working out at a Lifetime or Bally's Fitness that's a long time. And the way I did it then, when I did it when I was 27, and then I did it again when I turned 52. And in between that, I never really tried, because after I'd done it when I was in the early 20s, I'm like, done and dusted, it's possible. But how I learned to do it when I was younger was, there was no internet, hardly any magazine that's ever going to tell you how to do a one-arm pull-up, or a book to tell you how to do a one-arm pull-up. But I think I either got the idea somehow or somewhere by doing staggered pull-ups, using a towel draped over the bar. So I would start the pull-up training, and I did it palms out at the gym. I started with the towel draped over and literally cinched right under it, so my grip was staggered slightly. And then every workout after that, I would go down until I got down to like this. And where I remember is when I could do the pull-up with one arm, and my other arm was basically starting at my waist. And I was hardly really getting any mechanical advantage using the non-dominant hand. I knew I could do it. I had the range of motion, I had the muscle memory, I had the strength to pull it off, and sure enough, I got it. I think that took me less than 3 weeks, probably about 2 weeks. And about that same time, I was rock climbing also. And so I just thought that was a nice little treat to myself, to be able to be part of the very, very few people that can do a one-arm pull-up. Fast forward to 2021 and or 22, and a friend had mentioned, asked me about about how I managed to do that years ago, and whether or not I could still do it. And I wondered whether or not I could do it. That was a good question, and paid no mind to it, because I had been there, done that, but I wanted to, just out of curiosity, no harm, no foul, it's the off season from racing, could I do it? And this was right, I started the project right before, 2 weeks before Halloween of that year. And the reason why I know that, because in between trick-or-treaters that night, I turned on the camera, and I was tired and didn't have time to do a workout that night, a true workout, and I just said, hey, let me go and try to do the one-arm pull-up unassisted. And sure enough, I did it. Basically what I just showed you in the intro to this video. So that said, this very first still is me, the first time I tried it this time around in 2025 on January 1 for New Year, new challenge. And I had the offset grip, but this time I started with the with talon grips, which are basically eye loops, and they have 5 of them, but I was just using 2 of the loops, and you can see it's the black thing hanging on the left-hand side. And I did it with a staggered grip, if you can see, probably like this much, not here, but like here. And in my training methodology, what I was thinking I was going to do over time, granted I don't have the granularity of pulling, just making slight adjustments down a towel, I was just going to move the peg that the talon grips are held onto, move it down, and so I started at the kind of like this grip, and then I would slowly move it down this way. That picture of me peeling off, that picture of me hanging with arms is actually me peeling off, doing that because I had tried, actually before I tried the talon, because I wanted to see just baseline, what could I do with no assist, and it basically was this pulling up and then me turning to that picture you see there. I thought it was kind of a funny picture, but so then I was just like, okay, well now I gotta go ahead and do the actual talon grip and use that as the assist. And so I wanted to make sure that I worked on both arms, so I didn't have any balance issues as far as strength, and I wanted to give myself time to build up tendon strength, because my biggest concern in this whole project of mine is to not tear my bicep, not to cause any damage. And that said, one of the things that I did as far as training beforehand over the last year is work on my brachialis. And the brachialis is the muscle. Of course, I'm in a long sleeve shirt, but the muscle on the top of your forearm. And if this part is developed or starting to develop, it's kind of like it's like half the size of your forearm, and it kind of extends here. In my case, it's like a nice piece of meat that kind of goes diagonally from the inside, the anterior of your wrist to the exterior of your wrist. And that's a very underdeveloped muscle as far as your forearm is concerned. And by doing pull-ups in a peg position or palms parallel, it really works out that brachialis. And you can feel it when you put your hand where the brachialis is and you pull. And it's the best way to get the bang for your buck of, you're going to do pull-ups. If you're going to do pull-ups, vary your grip, but also don't neglect doing them with palms parallel, because that, like I said, that brachialis is very, very neglected. And so for the last year, I've been doing those. And so that muscle is very, very developed. And I just wanted to do this version of the one-arm pull-up in that 90-degree rotated, because it maximizes your bicep. And I don't think anyone's going to say it's cheating, because trust me, if I trained it just rotating it another 90 degrees, I could do it. I just thought this was a great, safe way of complementing the training I was doing before with what I wanted to accomplish this time. Anyway, so as far as my training methodology, I want to make sure I did equal amounts of reps per arm, and that I didn't have any muscle imbalance issues. And so this is just me on the first workout on that January 1st night, right? And because I am in joggers. Yeah, and it felt good. I was surprised. I felt good. It felt good. But again, in my mind, this is going to take 2 weeks, probably 3 weeks at most, if I can even do it. Being impatient, speaking of which, January 2nd rolls by and I'm back at it. And I knew I didn't want to do this every night, because I didn't want to cause any, again, tendon tears. And I know tendons take a lot longer to build than muscle, but I'm kind of impatient. And speaking of which, I'm back at it at January 3rd, but this time I had lowered the peg down to not the middle peg, but all the way down to the bottom. And it felt good, more importantly, because I was going to test it. It's like, oh man, that's just too much, total waste of time. It's like, no, it felt good. And then you roll into January 5th, same thing. Feels great. By this point, I'm doing at least I'm doing 6 reps per arm, 6 solid on my dominant hand, which is the right, and 5 great ones on the left. And by this point on January 7th, I felt 6 good, but I didn't want to increase too much on my dominant hand, and I'm just banging them out. And here's the thing: is I didn't film the nights after January 7th. I know I took a day off, and it was that Saturday or Sunday, because we went out and to the museums. But there was nights when I was kind of busy in between the 7th and what I'm about to show you, the 12th, and I was tired and I didn't do a full like my normal workout, the cardio, the bike stuff, or the strength training things. So for some reason I don't have footage between January 7th and January 9th, but there's definitely at least 2 or 3 nights there where I did do one-arm pull-up training. That said, the night before January 12th, I definitely took off because I was feeling fresh, and then January 12th rolls around, I also didn't have time to do a full workout, and I was thinking, I've had a little bit of rest. I wonder if I can pull it off. So I start the camera, and I find out.
and I was shocked that I was able to do it. It felt great. The left arm, I couldn't get my chin over my hand, and that was fine. I wasn't going to push my luck on that one, but I knew I could definitely do it on the right hand side. And I have to say, that was 11 days of training, and I was absolutely shocked that I was able to do that. Normally, I would tell someone to not jump the gun as far as preparedness with a project like this, because what could happen is you'll get demotivated. And so I would say stick to a program and like do all of that base level training and then test yourself. And in this case, 11 days compared to 14 is close enough, but I wouldn't try to do what I did on day one, is just do it cold in the interim between that beginning and your training program, if that makes sense. So on the first day, sure, I tested myself to see if I could do it, could not do it. And so I would recommend to someone to do your full course of what you planned to train for, or get very close to it, 75% of that, and then test yourself to see where you're at, as opposed to doing it a couple of days later after your initial attempt, because that's just going to mess with your head. You can do it, but I'm just saying stick to the program, because for me, it was actually in the interim of doing it from January 1 to the 12th, it was really a nice training for me, because I just focused on not the one arm pull up, but pulling myself up, with the talon like this. And that just was kind of refreshing and confidence building. So when the time rolled in on January 12th, I confidently jumped up with one arm, grabbed a hold, and I'm like, oh, that feels good. And then did it. So that's the long and short of how I was able to do a one-arm pull-up in 11 days. Like I tell people, if you have a process and you have a plan, you have determination, and you are realistic about your capabilities, you can do anything. Thanks for watching.